Okay, we're at 4:03. I think we're going to go ahead and kick off. I'll leave this poll open for a few minutes longer, and you are welcome to cast your vote. We'll go from there. My name is Amy Morgan, and I run our programming at the Winter Park Chamber. Very excited to bring our new programs to you virtually as we all are challenged to adapt to this current environment. I would like to introduce our President and CEO, Betsy Gardner Eckbert, who's going to speak today about how the Winter Park Chamber is adapting and how she challenges our community to adapt as well. Betsy, to you.
Thank you, Amy. And Amy's just now doing the polling feature because she's become the queen of Zoom, and we pivoted her out of some of her functionality into new functionality about 10 days ago, and she just continues to move from strength to strength, as do all of our team, and certainly Tiffany Cahill, who's on this call, is our event manager as well. So I want to thank our team for helping this get set up, and I want to thank all of you for making time to jump on this call today, and hopefully what we offer you will be some inspiration. At the Chamber, we have 4 things that we're focused on doing as strategic priorities. And the first one is to deliver an excellent Chamber experience. And one of the things we try to do in delivering that is to be a role model in the business community in and of ourselves as the board of directors and staff. And so I can't tell you how proud I am of our staff for stepping up and doing the things that they needed to do to turn us into a vibrant, functioning model for our business community as soon as possible. And I'm really privileged to have the chance to share some of what they've done here today. So we're going to talk today about how do you assess the current crisis that you're in? How do you think about pivoting to your own new business model? And how can you use something called the Lean Startup Method to enable that new functionality that's required in a crisis? So very early on, someone sent me an article in the middle of all this that said, unfortunately, we are not in a blizzard. We thought that COVID-19 was a blizzard, and a blizzard takes about a week to recover from. And it was time for us to all realize that we are moving into a winter, and that it was going to be a long season and not a short traumatic event, but that a long stymieing event, much like winter is for parts of the world. And we now know that there'll even be some permafrost left behind as a result of the devastating consequences of this pandemic. We now have to, instead of work off of business plans that are well thought through that roll out to 5 years, just like driving in a blizzard, we can only work about 10 feet in front of us. And that's a really tough thing to do. The conclusion of this article said every company in the world, as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, will now have to behave like a startup. So incumbent companies that have loads of brand recognition and decades of experience with their customers and lots of capital built up are now going to have to behave like startup companies. The name of the game is that companies need to act quickly or they will get left behind. And that's the stark reality of where we are. I was really fortunate to be attached to 2 different startup organizations. The first one was in London, England, where I came on in the 2nd year of growth for a startup consulting company that offered solutions to mentor senior women to get them ready for global roles. And then I ended up starting my own company from scratch with 2 partners. We created a luxury brand of swimwear that was sold in 14 countries worldwide. And we need to be thinking about ourselves right now as startups, and not just the kind of Bill Gates startup tech company from somebody's garage, but really thinking about what are the elements that go into the DNA of a startup company. They don't have very much capital, and those who do have capital are using it right now to pay payroll or make other essential bills get paid. There isn't sales forecasting ability. So, I started looking at working out our operating models last week and realized we have no way of knowing how to model the next 3 months, the next 6 months, the next 9 months. And that's very much like what it would be for a startup company. There's no sales history, so there's no way to model going forward 3 or 4 quarters. And so we don't have that ability right now because we can't say what normal is. I have no idea what will happen in April is the same thing as what happened in the last 2 months of March. So we don't have that. I don't really have access to the kind of marketing tools and budget I had before because it's not prudent to just be spending right now. We do have limited resources and we're moving into an unknown environment. All of these are key features of working in a startup. And if you haven't done it before, it may be something that takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you can get in that mindset, becoming more entrepreneurial is something that we talk about at the Chamber. Every size business can become more entrepreneurial, and we certainly challenge everyone to think about becoming more entrepreneurial right now. The great thing to learn from entrepreneurs is they really have nothing to lose. They're brand new into the market. They don't have market share. They don't have brand equity. And entrepreneurs themselves don't have job security. They could run out of money at any time and lose their job. So they really don't have anything left to lose. So they're able to think differently and take different kinds of risks than incumbent operators can take. And they end up being able to do some interesting things that can create opportunities that larger scale companies may not be able to do. So right now, conditions in the pandemic are making it hard to write, adhere to, or even amend a business plan. And the typical plan for a startup, a business plan for a startup, is about 5 years long. And it's a forecast for income, cash flow, and profits. There's a terrific quote from Mike Tyson, and he's, of course, the famous boxer. And he said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And certainly this pandemic is a giant punch in the mouth for anyone trying to operate a business right now. And so the question today is, how do we execute our business? How do we start to lead our business in a crisis? So when I was sitting in a board meeting 2.5 weeks ago, I was fortunate to have people on our board from both Advent Health and Orlando Health who are a little bit further along in understanding the severity of this crisis than the rest of us, who said, Betsy, you have to close the building and you have to do it as soon as possible. We were receiving guests from all over the world 3 weeks ago, some of whom might have been carrying the COVID-19 virus with them, and they were exposing a clear and present risk to our team and the other guests in our building. And so I remember at that meeting, someone joked that my face turned 3 shades whiter. But the first thing that came to my mind is, how am I going to pay my employees if they no longer do customer-facing, physically present roles like some of them did? And it concerned me. And so I put my energies into my first order of business, which was to take care of my staff. And I always use the golden rule in everything that I do. And I thought about how I would want to be communicated with and taken care of if I were on a team at this moment. And so we worked quickly to authorize paid time off that we were going to advance our employees so that they had available to them in case their roles didn't translate into other cross functions once we became a stay-at-home team. We had never done this before. I didn't know what being a stay-at-home team was going to look like for us. And so we advanced our team PTO and said, here's 2 weeks of PTO. You can take it, but you owe it to us on the back end over 12 months. And if you leave our organization, you have to pay us the cash value for it. So I felt like we had made a good interim step to take care of our employees. And then it became really clear to me that we had enormous needs in our business community that began to emerge very early on, and that we were going to have to cross-train and start cross-working our people in different roles and functionalities to meet the needs that were emerging, that were very different from the needs of our day-to-day chamber operation. So we started putting people into different roles, and we've actually given people different titles since we've started this journey almost 2.5 weeks ago. Everything that we did, we started out with our mission. And one of the things, going back to the blizzard and winter article that I keep referencing, was that many of us use a slide deck to talk about our organization when we go around town discussing what our mission is and how we do things. But much of the deck has other strategic priorities in there that are unique to this year. In that article, they said you can throw away everything from the deck except for the first slide, which is usually your mission slide. And that was a concise way of saying, get back to understanding why you exist, align what you need to do with why you exist, and start to create meaningful ways to engage with your customer base, or for us, it's our community and member base, so that we can be in alignment with that mission, but create new value points for that constituent base in the midst of this crisis. So our mission, as many of you know, is to convene people and ideas for the benefit of our businesses and our community. And we started really struggling, I started really struggling early on with, our job is to generate a crowd. Our job is to put a lot of people in our building or put a lot of people at an event. Our job is to teach. Our job is to bring people together. And we're now sitting in a reality where we need to be at least 6 feet apart. And it seems like every day the number of people we're allowed to be congregating with is getting smaller and smaller. How in the world do we deliver on our chamber mission of convening people virtually? I'm really grateful because we had already started doing some virtual programming through Facebook Live, and we had a team that was really ready to think differently about creating a chamber engagement model. A lot of chambers function on the basis of events and people showing up at events, and we were fortunate in that our team already started thinking differently about how do we engage with people through a digital newsletter, through a social media post, through a Facebook Live experience. And we had built that out, and I'm grateful to our board who 3 years ago allowed us to change our mission statement to reflect this idea of digital convention. So we had the team in place to start thinking differently about our mission, and we knew that we had to take that a step further. So we started thinking about, how do we create the heart and soul of our mission on a stay-at-home order? Things went from a bit bad to worse. So staying mission aligned, it became clear to me that I had 4 key chapters of work to do as the leader of our organization. And I try to focus on these 4 key chapters and do something in one of those chapters every day, knowing that there's so much in front of me to do that my head could explode each and every day trying to do it all. But I try to focus on my 4 key priorities in these chapters, and I try to do what I can do that day on each one of these chapters. And they're as follows. Keep making payroll. If you're making payroll right now, congratulations. Please keep doing it. It's the right thing. It's the best thing for our economy, and you may be rewarded for it later. As we begin to understand more and more about the CARES Act, there may be loan forgiveness for people who keep their employees. We have some information coming out about that tomorrow, and 2 webinars this week that will have more information about that for our employers. So we want you to stay tuned on that. But keep making payroll as long as you can. And if you haven't found a way to keep making payroll, make sure that you log on to our website and check our daily briefings for information about how to get a Florida emergency bridge loan to keep making payroll. So my number 1 priority is to keep making payroll. My number 2 priority is to motivate our community to access capital so that they can keep making payroll. If you notice in our communications, we talk every day about accessing capital because it's important to our local economy for people to keep making payroll by accessing capital for some at the moment. Our 3rd priority will emerge and grow more acute in the coming days. And that is, as a Chamber of Commerce, to make sure that we are accessing resources to enable people in our community to have somewhere to live and something to eat. This crisis will grow a bit deeper in the coming days, and we need to be focused on how we can be part of those solutions. And then my 4th chapter that I have to focus on every single day is that we will rebuild the business community in Winter Park stronger than ever. So knowing that those are my 4 key things and that my team was now safe, I thought, how can we deliver on our mission virtually? We have to become a lean startup. And what is a lean startup? A startup is often something people think about, a Silicon Valley pair of guys kicking off something in their garage, and it's usually tech focused. But it's a definition laid out by a guy called Eric Ries, who coined the term to describe this. A lean startup is an institution designed to create a new product or service under conditions of extreme uncertainty. And that's my college-age son in the background. Wave hi, Hayden. Going through my webinar. This is the conditions of extreme uncertainty that we're in. In other words, in lean startup terms, a startup is a group of people working on a risky new product, even if that group of people works for a large company or a large organization. So I'll give you some names of organizations that have adopted the lean startup concept, and lean startup is now taught in MBA programs as accepted pedagogy for excellent best practice in business. So these are some of the institutions that use Lean Startup now: the US Marine Corps, Exxon, Qualcomm, Intuit, and GE. These are examples of companies that have found this a very profitable way for them to think about how to solve their business problems, especially in an era of extreme uncertainty. So the Lean Startup is essentially focused on doing two key things. Number one is creating what's called the minimum viable product. And number two is focused on pivoting. So instead of sitting with a room of researchers and people doing endless amounts of research on how to get the perfect prototype, and that we focus group it and we wait months and months and months and go through a stealth period to get something out, we create instead the minimum viable product. Many of you know that when Apple release a phone, they know that they have to release an upgrade to it an update to the software within a week of its release. They know that they don't have everything ready to go perfectly, but they release it anyway. And that's a practice of releasing the minimum viable product, and they present an upgrade in a few days or a week's time. In fact, I talked about this philosophy with my son, and he said, "Oh, Mom, video game teams come in the day after release and they have to work around the clock because they anticipate all the bugs and they have to upgrade them." So tech companies are releasing the minimum viable product all the time. The second piece of this is the pivot. And it's a really important piece of it because it takes a culture that's ready to test and look at things and change things in real time based on customer feedback. It used to be that customer feedback was very hard to acquire. You had to have a cup of coffee with someone and talk about the product. It was a very lengthy process. Bring focus groups in to sit down and hear about things. Now we can get customer feedback in real time. Case in point, many of you answered our poll at the beginning of this webinar, and you gave us customer feedback at the very beginning of the poll. Today, we sent out a survey to understand the pain points in our business community, and we have over 10% of our membership, which is a very, very high response rate for a survey, have already responded to our survey to give us data, and we sent that out, I believe, at noon. So here we are 4 hours later with a significant data set that we can take to our city government and say, these are the things we need to partner with you on to help solve the problems of the business community. So data is highly efficient. It's all around us. It's easy to get. And it's what enables the pivot and the real-time iterative process that allows you to release the minimum viable product and then improve it with each iteration. So startups are not just smaller versions of big companies. They actually have a different DNA from a big company. Big companies are very top heavy. They're very legal driven. There's a whole bunch of bureaucratic layers. There's an appetite to get everything as risk proof as possible before it's released. And existing companies execute very tightly to a business model. Startup companies look for a business model. And a case in point is Google. When Google launched, no one really knew they were going to become the giant ad revenue behemoth that they are today. But they looked for that business model as they moved through their incumbency as a search engine, and they found new ways to add value, and they created new business models as they went on. So we want you to think about how you can create this minimum viable product, and then how you can look for a new business model as you release it and test it and iterate it to make it better each time. So for us, we're really fortunate at the Chamber of Commerce because we have a team that values nimbleness and values learning. So the key elements that you need to have in your culture to function like a lean startup are collaboration, meaning excellent teamwork, nimbleness, and then speed. Many of you know that we do 110 events and programs a year through the Chamber of Commerce, and if you've taken any of them, you know that we survey everything that we do. And on Monday morning, we have a ritual at our staff meeting of going through our surveys. And it's interesting because one of my peers asked me once, don't people feel embarrassed if there's something on the survey that's negative? And I'm extremely proud of our team and our culture because there's such an appetite to improve in our culture that we're almost excited to hear something that we can improve instead of high praise all the time because we know what that next frontier for improvement is and where we can go. We've created a culture of learning. We've created a culture of iteration, and we've created a culture of nimbleness. Now, because we did all that for 3 years, we were able to supercharge it when we had to during this crisis. But essentially, what we did was we performed the functions of a lean startup. We found a business idea. We said, okay, we can't do any of the programming or events that we've got planned, maybe for as long as 3 to 6 months. So what is it that our business community needs right now? Well, number one, they need leadership. We need to provide visible, accessible leadership to our business community. Number two, we've got to provide them information. And the information is flowing so quickly that we now need to start communicating with them more frequently than ever. As many of you know, we used to present 2 newsletters a week. We changed that to 5 newsletters a week at midday so that we could present accurate and up-to-date information about how to secure your business each and every day. So we found this idea to enhance and increase the level of our communication, and we executed it immediately. We said, we're going to move all of our newsletters to daily. Well, that took sizing up portions of our team, creating some cross-functionality, creating some team expectations of you can't really chit-chat with the communications team in the morning because they're on deadline now to get this newsletter out, which is something they hadn't been doing on that schedule before. So our whole team had to adapt and react to that. But again, we have values of collaboration, nimbleness, and speed already within our organization's DNA, so we were able to use that. Then we were able to execute the business idea. We said, just get it out. We just got to do one and see how it goes. We know our organization has people who would tell us what we can do better, how we can improve, how we can have more suggestions. And so we found the business idea and we executed it. Once we started executing it, we realized that there were people that needed more information, that our newsletter alone wasn't providing an adequate level of information on these highly changing environments, on the environment out of Washington, that first there's one aid package and there's a second one, now we're on a third one, which really makes each aid package before it obsolete. So we've got to communicate very quickly and accurately with our audience. And then we had to validate our business idea. So our business idea was communicate some more, and then communicate still more. So we launched our webinar series. We launched it out of an idea in our staff meeting on Monday morning, and we had our first webinar up and running by 4 p.m. that afternoon. It wasn't perfect, and there were elements of it that we wish we could have done perfectly, but we didn't. What we did was we embraced the nimbleness of the lean startup model, and we put something out there that we could begin to improve, the minimum viable product. We had an idea at 10 a.m. and we had a product into our customer's hand by 4 p.m. that day. We improved it significantly. By the next day, it was much better. We learned how to record. We learned how to engage with our audience. We learned how to pregame it with our speaker and our agenda. And we had a whole bunch of other elements that made it up to our professional standard of delivering an excellent chamber experience and being a role model for our community. By day 3 or 4, we had created a workflow. There were standard workflows that were attached to how we delivered a webinar, because at this point, we're doing them now every single day. And we're creating new content to put into the new webinar workflow. At the same time, our communications team is getting out new and more enhanced communication and becoming a real community center for Winter Park as we move forward. And then we created the survey tool so that we can now enter the iterative process and improve on this. And some of you have been kind enough to take our survey and share with us how we can improve our Securing Your Business webinar series. And we've been able to incorporate those comments and make our content better and better and better. So number 1, we found the business idea. Number 2, we executed the business idea. And number 3, we validated the business idea, not just with our survey tool, but also with what I like to call meaningful metrics. We have a spreadsheet where we looked at how many people attended the webinar, how many people came back to attend, what time of day were they more likely to attend, and we started amassing data that could help us refine our delivery and our offering. So the key is that we understood the problem early. We had made changes to our business model where we sent everybody home very early in the pandemic, and we were able to understand that the problem was we could not perform business as usual of creating crowds in the Chamber of Commerce building or at an event. We had to collaborate on the design of the product to help solve the problem. We collaborated on the webinar. We collaborated on the daily newsletter. And we began testing these prototypes that we got out very, very quickly. We tested and we learned. We tested and we learned. Then we iterated and we refined. And I'm very proud to say that the webinar you're on today is much, much glossier than the webinar we put out a week ago Monday. So we built this daily communications tool, accurate and up to date. We decided not to put it on the website because we knew we could not maintain accuracy if it was parked on a website. And we went to our at-home model right away. We set up a community care coordinator to start to understand the needs of the community and meet them, whether they be shelter, food, jobs. And then we beefed up our own virtual meetings. We found that we had to have collaboration as the centerpiece of what we did. And so we went from what I thought was going to be one team meeting a week, which we used to do in real time and in front of each other, to several team meetings a week. We're up to about 3 right now a week. And many of us are now using Zoom and collaboration of just 2 people on a call at one time. We crafted the daily webinar series to create daily content, and we changed the functionality of some of our staff. We set routines, which has become incredibly important. For me, putting on makeup and earrings and a nice outfit makes me feel like I'm at work, so I do that every day. But one of the things that our team did so well and continues to do well is that they stayed flexible. They realized that nimbleness, speed, and teamwork were critical to making the lean startup model work, and they've been really, really loyal to this. We continue to test everything that we do. You're going to get a survey about how we did today. Please tell us how we can improve, because we're going to read these surveys and find ways to improve in the future. So Lean Startup is a model that really favors experimentation over elaborate planning. It favors customer feedback over that big design engineered upfront thinking. It favors agile teams, learning, nimbleness, and speed over rigid cultures. And it favors a culture of continuous improvement and testing. And we became more entrepreneurial as we'd hoped we'd be. And I think we still can become even more still entrepreneurial. And whether your organization is large or small, all of us can become much more entrepreneurial. Entrepreneurs accept prima facie. They only have a set of hypotheses to use to govern their business. They know that they can't rely on last year's numbers sometimes because they don't have last year's numbers to build forecasts. And they don't do fully functional prototypes before they release something. They release the minimum viable product, and then they test it and evaluate it and make it better. So in conclusion, we've learned to celebrate that it's better to have something done than perfect, and that we're executing with agile development, we're assessing with metrics that matter, and we're improving. One of the things that we accept in our team is that failure is expected and celebrated, because that means we're pushing things all the way to the edge of the innovation boundary. We hope that we always fail forward and that we are tolerant of it as a team. So those are some of the things that we've been doing over the past 2.5 weeks to try to innovate and lead our community. We hope that you're becoming more and more entrepreneurial as you move through changing your business model and pivoting to something that works to reflect your customers' needs in the changing environment that we're in. And we hope that you'll always lean on us as a resource where we can use our agility, our nimbleness, and speed to meet the needs and demands of the business community in Winter Park. So thanks for letting me spend time with you here today. And I think Amy's going to open it up for questions if you have any.
Well, thank you so much, Betsy, for your leadership always, and especially now. I think I speak on behalf of our team when I just say thank you for everything that you're doing to ensure that we're able to provide value to our community. We are so appreciative of it. So as Betsy mentioned, we are definitely open to questions at this time. You can ask questions in 2 different ways. One is through the chat box feature, and 2 is by raising your hand in Zoom. And you can do both of those options by clicking on the buttons on the bottom of your screen. You'll find on your computer, if you hover on the bottom of your screen, a banner will pop up, and you can click either raise hand and I'll unmute you, or you can click the chat box feature. We do have, we have a note that came through. Really appreciate the daily email briefings. They've been very helpful. So as Betsy mentioned, we do have daily briefings going out every day talking about federal, state, and hyperlocal news. And you can sign up for those if you're not currently receiving them by visiting winterpark.org and clicking the banner at the top of the screen. Okay, let's see what else we have. Well, let's try the poll and see what happens. I'm ending the poll now. I'm sharing results for the first time, so bear with me. Are you able to see it, Betsy?
Yes. Am I the only one that can see it, you and I?
I believe everyone can see it, but as I said, bear with me. This is our current, oh, okay, they say they can see it.
Great. So you can see we've got about 46% of people have adjusted their business model by layoffs or shorter hours, delaying investment projects. 54% of you have a product or service adjustment. That would definitely be us here at the Winter Park Chamber of Commerce. New pricing adjustments, adjustments to wages and benefits is 0. No significant actions taken is 8%. I'm super jealous of you guys who haven't had to take significant action yet. And then new corporate strategies are 31% of you. So thank you for taking time to share things in the poll with us. That's really helpful. And if you haven't taken our survey yet today, we're extremely grateful if you can take that, because we're trying to get a community-wide snapshot of how far-reaching this is and how much challenge is really out there in our business community. So I really appreciate y'all taking time to do that. So I see a question here from Maria Burke. It says, I have a customer looking to buy in Winter Park. What's the main source of information for Winter Park? I'm assuming this is a residential real estate question. There are 2 things that we normally have available, but one I can promise you of. Number 1, we have a community care coordinator. Her name is Shirley Woolsey. She is at WPCC@winterpark.org. I can type this answer so everybody can see it. But she is a super helpful source of all information, and she is deputized to be available all business hours, all the time right now, even when we have our building closed. So she can be helpful. We have a relocation guide that's a hard copy, and then we have a relocation guide on our website. So if she goes to winterpark.org, she'll find information there. And then our directory, we have a whole bunch of residential realtors on our directory at winterpark.org. Do you have anything to add to that, Amy? You might. You're on mute, Amy.
I'm sorry.
Right.
That sounds good. And Shirley's information is also listed on our Securing Your Business webinar website. So if you take a look at our upcoming topics, you are also able to grab Shirley's information there. Okay.
One of our passions is to make sure that we always have personal attention. And I'm really pleased that because we've been able to move Shirley to a new functionality, that she was the face of the chamber at the front desk in the mornings, and now she is the eyes and ears of the chamber and is available to our customers all business hours every day. So I'm super grateful we've been able to transition her at this time.
Okay, we've got a shy group today, not a lot of questions. Just one more reminder, if you would like to ask a question, you can hover on the bottom of your screen and choose raise hand, and I'd be happy to unmute you. I challenge you to go ahead and ask your question if you're a little bit nervous. This is our new way to engage, so please do so. We would love to hear your questions.
I want to take a time out and say there are a few of our staff members on here, and I just want to say, we could not have a more impressive team at the Chamber of Commerce. I am so privileged to lead these people, and they inspire me every single day. And I think our community is very lucky to have such talented people supporting the work of the Chamber of Commerce. So many of them are on the call. I want to thank you all for everything you do. It has been a very wild ride over the past 2 weeks, and it definitely has taken a team effort for us to move to this completely new business model. Okay, I think we have, do we have one more question? Open. How many people are on the call? I think at one point we had 25 on the call, Stephen was asking.
Yeah, I will share that these webinars are recorded. So while we know that due to the speed that we're putting them out, not everyone can attend, they're hosted on our website, so you can see a full recording and get any information that you need. We have been hosting a webinar every 24 hours, and we've had upwards of 80 people on some of them. So just depending on the timing and what else is going on, we have different levels of engagement, but all content is hosted on our website and able to be accessed later. And Betsy, I think that is the last of our questions.
Great.
So thank you all for your engagement, and do look out for a survey about this call where you can share your feedback on what you liked and what you didn't like, and also definitely suggest some future webinar topics.
Thank you all so much for spending time with us today. And thanks again to my team for putting all this together. Stay safe and let us know how we can assist you in securing your business at this difficult time. Enjoy your afternoon.